Hey guys, so I just finished the inseam for number 57 here, and I think it came out pretty great. I don't know if you can see that there. The camera's been having some problems with being able to show things under excessively light conditions, which it's pretty bright out this morning. And now, number 56, I'm going to be working on here, the Zero Coat guitar. And getting started out here, I'm not exactly sure yet if I want to do a similar thing to what I did there with the sort of large end wedge and framing it in the, well in this case it'll be ebony, but framing it in the same material as the bindings. Or I might do something much simpler and just have something like a binding strip coming down like this, just dead straight. And that's simply because looking at this, I really don't want to take away from, I actually love how this kind of just slides right across there, the edge of that heartwood material. So I'm kind of leaning towards just doing something as dead simple as that, or something similar. But hey, it's a process, so I'm going to think about that a little bit more and kind of let the guitar take me where it wants to go. Okay, so let's get started on this one. I'm really excited to see how this is going to turn out. By the way, this vise here that you're seeing that I have simply clamped to the table, all this is just two 2x4s that I've cut a long radius into the face of each of these. And that way, when this vise bites down, it only bites down on the very rim of the guitar. No matter where you put the guitar in here, I could push it down further, have it up higher. Because of that extreme radius that I cut into it, it's only ever biting down on the rim, which is safe. If you had just two flat pieces of wood in here, it would be pressing down. Excuse me, it would be pressing down on the radius of the back and the top, which you could and probably would collapse the top in that case if you tried using boards that weren't radiused. So I've decided to go with just a simple ebony binding strip to cover up the end seam. I am also going to add 2 maple purfling strips just to give a little bit of contrast. So first I mark out how much binding strip I'm going to need to cut off, and then I'll take it over to my bandsaw and cut that piece. Next I make 2 marks off of center to mark out for the thickness of the binding strip. Then using a small square and being very careful to reference that square directly over the center of where that strip is going to go, because the radius can make that square a little tippy if you don't put the reference block right over the center. Then I'll trace out 2 square lines coming down off of those 2 marks. This gives me something to orient my piece, my binding strip, to. Before I proceed, just to make sure that the edges of my binding strip are flat and smooth, I'll take it to the sanding board. And next I attach double stick tape to one side of the binding strip. Now I carefully stick the binding strip down right between those 2 square lines that I drew onto the side. And then I can double check my work with the square just to make sure that this binding strip is truly square to the top. Now, just like I did for guitar number 57, I'm going to double stick tape down these 2 bits of scrap wood as a fence right against the ebony binding strip. However, since I mentioned that I wanted to add those maple purfling strips, I'm going to actually wedge those purfling strips in between the ebony binding strip and the fence. That way the full thickness of the binding strip and its 2 contrasting lines, the maple purfling strips, will all be accounted for. Now I can remove the purfling strips and begin cutting with my Japanese curved edge mini saw, being careful not to cut the very outermost portions of the footprint of the end graft, because I don't want to make a deep cut on either the top plate or the back plate, which could be visible later on. So I'm just going to avoid the top plate and the back plate entirely. Once the lines are established, I remove the fences and Dremel out the fussy end grain areas of the back plate and the top plate, being careful to only pull the Dremel from the outside inward so as not to get any blowout on the face of the top or the back. If the end graft is larger, like it was in the previous video for guitar number 57, then you can use the Dremel to hog out most of the material in the middle as well. However, this end graft has such a small footprint that there's very little wood left over to remove, so I can go straight to the chisel and just start popping out the small amount of material that's left, being very careful to keep that chisel away from those nice crisp lines that we created earlier. So now with the channel cleaned out, I'm test fitting the pieces, and I'm finding that it's just a little bit too tight, which is perfect because now I can just take the binding strip and lightly sand one edge of it and sneak up on a perfect fit that way. Okay, and here we have it. Simple but effective. Again, the main idea was not to distract from everything going on in the background here with the sort of landscape effect that the Zero Coat gives the side. So all I did was install an ebony strip with some attractive maple purflings on the side. Looking good, and now this body is ready to be routed for binding. If you learned something here, please give this video a like and subscribe so you can be notified when I release a new DIY guitar making video every Friday. And if you want to really learn more, take one of my structured online courses at ericschaferguitars.com or register for a hands-on guitar building workshop here with me in Burnville, Pennsylvania.